So back in AX, I'm here on the Released Products form, and I'm going to go ahead and set up some default and site-specific order settings. I've got my baby t-shirt item selected, and I'm going to go to the Manage Inventory tab in the Action pane. Here in the Order Settings group, you'll see two separate buttons, one for default and one for site-specific order settings. Let's start with the default order settings. For this item, I can select a specific site to be used for this item by default. I'll choose that it's going to be Site 1. I can also select the default order type. This controls whether the item will be a purchase order, production order, or Kanban when master planning is creating new orders. On the Purchase Order tab, I can select and enter some additional information. There's also a checkbox here to say that this particular site is mandatory. If this checkbox is selected, no other site can be selected on a purchase order for this particular item. The multiple allows me to control how many items can be ordered on a particular purchase order. So if I say that it has to be ordered in multiples of 10, you can only order in multiples of 10, 20, 30, and so on. We can also specify a minimum. Let's say the vendor has a requirement that we must order 100 minimum on a particular order. If they also specify a maximum, such as 1,000, I can enter that value. The standard order quantity allows me to type in an amount that would default into new purchase orders. So if I typically order 600, I can type 600 into the standard order quantity field. I can override the lead time and specify if that lead time only includes working days. You can also stop the item for purchase orders. So at some point, if this item is no longer valid to be purchased on a purchase order, I would come back into this screen and mark the Stop checkbox. If we click the Inventory tab, you'll notice all of the same settings. However, these settings are going to be specific to production orders, transfer orders, or other inventory adjustments. If I do not specify values here, then basically the system will assume that 1 is the default. The Sales Order tab has all of the same settings as well. If I want to specify a minimum here and multiple of 1, it will prevent a user from purchasing 1.5 t-shirts or less than 1 t-shirt because that would not be possible or make sense. Once I'm done with default order settings, I can start to set up site-specific order settings. Site-specific order settings are useful when you have more than one physical site where the items are stored, bought, or sold from. I open it by clicking Site-Specific Order Settings. I'm going to choose a site. In this particular example, I'll choose Site 2, and I can select which warehouse will be used by default for this particular item in purchasing, inventory, and sales. If you go to the General tab, you'll notice it looks exactly like the General tab of the regular default order settings form. If we go to the Purchase Order tab, it has all of the same fields as well. You'll notice that these fields are grayed out, and that's because I cannot change them unless I mark the Override checkbox. So in this particular site, I want to override the settings and say that the minimum order in this particular site is 500. I could override the lead time as well, because maybe this particular warehouse is further away and it takes longer for it to arrive. I can override any of the settings on the Inventory tab as well by marking that Override checkbox and then changing the values. The same rules apply for the Sales Order tab.